Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dal. While we have no idea what patch 9.2 is going to be, the future patch of World of Warcraft that has been confirmed by the developers, we do know that inklings of this patch have actually showed up on PTR. While there's currently nothing testable, it looks like there are some builds moving forward in the background of PTR that are trying to get 9.2, or at least the early version, on a testable standby. This is legitimately exciting news because this could mean that patch 9.2, after the weeks and months of testing that it will take, could be playable live way sooner than all the other Shadowlands patches we've had so far, depending how Blizzard rolls this one out. So of course it's a little too early to tell, but we'll still talk about it and how this could mean, in the best possible scenario, potentially a really good thing going forward for World of Warcraft in general. It seemed like a great short topic that I can put out and talk about while also trying to fix my sleep schedule. So patch 9.2 is in prep stages. It's not up on PTR just yet. However, it's in prep stages pretty soon. The prep stage I'm talking about is an encrypted version of the patch. Doesn't mean that it's playable, but when you have a patch come out into an encrypted build, it means that it's coming out into a testable build. The sooner a patch comes out into something that we can touch, something we can play with, something that we can test over on the testing realms, the faster that comes out to PTR, the sooner we know about a potential window of when this thing could come out. After a patch goes in PTR, in previous patches, on previous PTRs, it definitely takes several weeks or a couple of months until this thing is released, and as they get less and less updates on it, we have a more narrow window of when this thing could come out. But again, like I said earlier, before it becomes something that we can test with and play with and mess around and try some of the new stuff that's coming out, test the class changes, it needs to take that first initial step. Come out as an encrypted version over on the PTR servers. And that's the exciting part, is that it already took that first step. Normally after a patch drops, like 9.15 only recently dropped, let's take an example of patch 9.1. It took a couple of months before we saw anything about 9.15 over on the test realms. For this one, for patch 9.15, it hasn't even been a week old, and already do we have some sort of shifting, some sort of messing around over on the PTR. What's also interesting is when it has that encrypted state, normally takes about 1 or 2 weeks before it becomes testable playable. Not sure if that's going to happen here, but that could be exciting. At least that is the best case scenario. But if we want to be realistic and not overhype ourselves, it could be a situation where it started doing something in PTR, but it will take a month or two before we see anything major happen over on the testing realms. Blizzard themselves mentioned that for 9.2 they'll make announcements, and we haven't heard any announcements just yet. So it might just be a good idea to relax and not expect anything crazy. But if you wanted to be less realistic and talk about the potential best case scenario, in the best case, this could mean a fastest rollout of content in a long while. But time will tell. Shadowlands has been a little bit slower when it comes to rolling out patches, rolling out content, and rolling out regular updates. At least in a stark comparison compared to some of the other expansions, just recent ones like Battle for Azeroth and Legion, which, by the way, Legion had a strict 77 days between patches and updates. They were super strict about making regular content happen. But in the best case scenario, it could mean that 9.2 would at least pick up the pace to give Blizzard an opportunity to start releasing content more regularly like they used to do before. I still wonder what they're going to do in the future. We know that 9.2 is going to be here, and we don't really know what's going to be next, but they said there's definitely going to be more. We don't know if this is more going to be in the expansion of Shadowlands, like a potential 9.2.5 or a 9.3, or if this is going to be more as in more post Shadowlands, as in a whole new expansion to announce after. I guess we'll find out sometime soon. There should hopefully be some announcements with 9.2 prepping to be testable, or at least a portion of it. But either way, the fact that it's at least prepping, at least there's something happening in the background, I see as a good news. Well, again, we'll see in the future how things are going to go, but for now, I think this is good. They also got an interesting announcement too. New job positions opening up at Blizzard, particularly those that have to do with content, like designing dungeons, raid fights, and boss fights in general, encounter design. Opportunity to get fresh heads into designing content encounters for future patches, or maybe even future expansions. Coming up with dungeon ideas, dungeon fights, and raid bosses has been one of the Blizzard's strong suit. Even during its worst times of any expansion, the raid fights are generally excellent. And that is one of the things that we want to continue seeing forward in the future. More content in regards to some of the endgame stuff that we get to interact with Blizzard opening up more potential for dungeons with Mythic Plus content, and making raids more intricate, more interesting as they go on, and getting more fresh blood and fresh ideas, fresh brains thinking about all the different content to come up with. I think this is good. This is an awesome change. Them opening up their doors for more fresh ideas is good. This is just going to be great for players overall in general. Hopefully some of the encounters and content that is designed here is going to be maybe something like timeless content. Not time walking or like timeless isle or anything, but literally content that we can come back to again and again. Maybe through time walking, maybe through other means, but things like Mage Tower becoming a regular activity you can do during time walking, it was a fantastic bit of content that everybody enjoyed during Legion. And once Legion was over, we never came back to the Mage Tower, couldn't access it ever again. And now we can. Hopefully it'll be something that's designed without time walking in mind, like content that stands on its own 2 feet by itself, something that a player can do solo or with friends, something that is timeless, that stays the same way as expansions change, something for players to come back to if, let's say, you've never done it before, and something for new players and older players to experience and re-experience. Time walking generally solves issues like this, but I wonder if there's a way to design content that doesn't need time walking, that can just be its own thing. Future expansions later. Finally, I want to mention some of my expectations for patch 9.2 as well as some of the community expectations. With the announcement that patch 9.2 is going to be most likely hitting PTR sometime in potentially near future, a lot of players expressed their ideas of what they really want to see. I think a lot of us can agree, and this is the notion that I've seen a lot online, is we don't want to see more systems. We already have enough systems in Shadowlands as is, and these systems actually work better than BFA. Soulbinds, Conduit Energy, Renown, well actually Conduit Energy got removed, but Conduits themselves, if they can make like Conduits a little bit easier to access through vendors that are not gated behind rep, that would be fantastic. But besides that, we have decent enough systems between legendaries, between covenants, and they do functionally work. And now that we can switch them around a lot easier whenever we want to, it again becomes a lot easier to interact with. In the future, I don't think a lot of people want to see more systems on top of systems. Just maybe adjust and tune the stuff we have right now, and maybe slightly expand on it, but not add extra systems on top of everything else. My ideas would be like adding a 4th soulbind for every single covenant that adds their own unique spins. Like imagine if you could soulbind with Draka from the Necrolords, and she comes with specific traits and abilities that nobody else has. Something that's competitive, but something that's not overpowered either. And they could just add one for every single covenant, minus any of the gating behind a rep or earning it with renown, just a quest line you do with that character and then you have them unlocked. Some players suggested what if they added a 5th covenant, the Maw covenant or the Jailer's covenant. I guess that could happen, but then you're looking at balancing issues because you're adding covenant and all the different class covenant abilities and tuning them against one another. Honestly, what I think what we need is just more content. Dungeons, more solo player content, more group player content, more raids. Maybe not as much of like this end game content focus, but maybe some side activities to enjoy. Very similar to like Chromate Time of Legion, where it wasn't endgame content that you needed to progress for endgame raids or dungeons, but something you could do on the side for different cosmetics or different appearances, different items, different unique things like mounts and such. Maybe other quality of life stuff like changing around covenants, super simple. Being able to scrap legendaries, fantastic. But it probably could benefit from a conduit vendor, a way for players to be able to buy their conduits at different ranks whenever they need to, just to be able to make their character maxed out and fill out all the different gaps as we try to make our ults as competitive as our mains. Of course, customization for characters, everybody loves those. I think there isn't a second of time where players hated any of the new customizations that Blizzard has added. And then also, potentially even transmogs and fun stuff like that. There's so much stuff they could add that isn't particularly endgame content that could be so good for patch 9.2. But I guess time will tell what any of that is going to look like. I just wanted to let you guys know the patch 9.2 could be coming out sometime soon. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed. I'm going to get some rest, and I'll see all of you in the next one.